Hi students, welcome to my channel. Before we start, let me ask you one simple question. Why do we enjoy sad movies? Why do we cry while watching tragedies and still feel relaxed when the movie ends? If sadness is a painful, why do we enjoy it in art? The person who first answered these all questions clearly that was Aristotle. Aristotle did not write poetry to entertain us. He studied poetry to understand how it works on the human mind. Today, we will not memorize Aristotle, we will understand his key ideas slowly and clearly, one by one. So, today's topic is Aristotle as a literary critic. Life of Aristotle. Aristotle was born in 384 BC in a Greek town called Stagira. That is why he is often called Aristotle of Stagira in books. His father was a physician in a royal court of Macedonia. This is very important because his father was a doctor. Aristotle grew up observing nature, studying causes and effects, believing in a logic and evidence. This scientific background later influenced his literary criticism. He studied under Plato for almost 20 years. Plato was Aristotle's teacher, we know that. But Aristotle did not agree with Plato's views on poetry. Later, Aristotle became the teacher of Alexander the Great. After that, Aristotle founded his own school called Lyceum. In the Lyceum, Aristotle used to walk while teaching. Because of this, his followers were called Peripatetics, meaning those who walk while learning. Aristotle died in 322 BC, but his ideas still live today. His works, important works of Aristotle, as we know, he wrote books on many subjects such as philosophy, ethics, politics, logic, science, biology. But for literature students, the most important work is Poetics. Poetics is Aristotle's very important and a masterpiece. Aristotle talks mainly about in Poetics, poetry, tragedy, epic poetry. He explains how a good tragedy should be written, why tragedy affects the audience, what makes a plot effective. The part dealing with the comedy is lost. That we have to remember. Tragedy and comedies were there in that book, but the part of the comedy was lost. Poetics is the earliest and most systematic work of literary criticism. So these are the Poetics that I have already talked about. The Poetics, he has written so many books on so many theories, poetics, ethics, even the politics, logic and biology also. So now we can know about the Plato and Aristotle differences in thinking. To understand Aristotle clearly, we must compare him with Plato. As we know earlier in the last video that Plato believed in what? Poetry is an imitation of imitation. Poetry is a far from truth. Poetry excites emotions. Emotions are dangerous. Poets should ban from the ideal state. Plato forced emotions. These are all points that we know. But Aristotle believed totally different from Plato. According to Aristotle, poetry is an imitation of a life. Poetry expresses universal truth. Emotions are natural. Emotions must be understood. They are not suppressed. Plato criticized poetry because of it is immoral, but Aristotle defended poetry logically. Now, we can know about the theory called mimesis. The most important concept in Aristotle's criticism is mimesis. Mimesis means imitation. According to Aristotle, literature imitates. What it really imitates? Human actions, human behavior, human emotions also. But imitation does not mean copying reality like a photograph. One who talked about it, the Plato. For example, according to Aristotle, a photograph copies exactly what we see, but a painting selects, arranges, and improves the reality. So, according to Plato, what he says, the life itself is a carbon copy. Everything is a copy of a real idea. But Plato, who denies that, he says that the art itself is not as it is, but it is not a copy. It which creates, and that is a reality which comes with what? It modifying the things. And he gives a example like, but a painting selects, arranges, and improves the reality. It is not the carbon copy as it is, but it improves it, it modifies it, it recreates the reality. So that's why Aristotle believes the life. What is the life? Life is a creative and it represents the literature. Aristotle says imitation is a natural to human beings. Children learn by imitating elders, as we know. Students learn by imitating teachers. Artists learn by observing life. For Aristotle, imitation is a natural, educational, and pleasurable. Now we can find the differences between poetry and history as a philosophy. What is the difference between, what is the distinction between the philosophy like poetry and history? Aristotle makes a very important comparison between poetry and history. History, what it does, it tells us what actually happened, particular facts, real events. But poetry tells us what may happen, what usually happens in a human life, universal truths. For example, history says this king died in a war, the exact thing, the fact. Poetry says pride often leads to downfall. So this is the modification, the reality, the recreation. That is a poetry. Poetry is a more philosophical and serious than history that he believes. Now again he talks about tragedy. So what is a tragedy according to Aristotle? Aristotle gives a famous definition of a tragedy. Tragedy is an imitation of a serious action, complete in itself, written in a beautiful language, performed on a stage, creating pity and fear, leading to a catharsis. These all points the tragedy includes. This is the nature of a tragedy. Tragedy does not exist only to entertain, it exists to teach life through emotions. Now, there are 6 elements of tragedy. Aristotle explains that every tragedy has 6 elements. The first one is a plot. In Greek, the plot is called mythos. Plot means the structure of events. It is not just a story, it is the logical arrangement of an incident. Aristotle believes plot is the soul of tragedy. Why? Because events create emotions. Without plot, tragedy cannot exist. It is a very important thing. Second one, characters. Ethos in Greek. Character shows the moral nature of a person. A tragic hero is a noble, is respectable, is not perfect. We feel pity because he does not deserve suffering, but he suffers in the tragedy. The great heroes, the great king who falls down means his most of being a small error, he his most of the character is fallen down. So then, of course, the tragedy happens. So third point is thought, dianoia in Greek. Thought means ideas, themes, messages. For example, justice, fate, pride, and responsibilities, these are the plots. The fourth one, diction. Diction is called in Greek lexis. Diction is the choice of words. He says, language should be clear, appropriate, suitable to the situation. The fifth one, song, melos. Song refers to chorus, music, rhythm. It increases emotional effect. The sixth one, spectacle. Spectacle is called in Greek, opsis. Spectacle means stage effects, costumes, scenery. Spectacle is the least important because it depends on a stage artist, not the poet. So that's why he kept it in a category called the least category. Which one? The spectacle. Next one is unity of action. The unity of action. Unity of action means one main plot should be there in tragedy. One main plot and no unnecessary subplots. He always denies and he discarded the subplots. Every incident should contribute to the main story. Aristotle insists only on unity of action, not a time or a place, but three unities are there. Unity of time, unity of action, and unity of place. But Aristotle gave more importance to the unity of action. That we have to keep in our mind. Complex plot, he says, even he talks about complex plot. What does that mean of complex plot? Aristotle refers complex plots because they create strong emotions. Complex plot includes peripecia and anagnorisis. What does that mean of peripecia? Peripecia means reversal. It means reversal. Peripecia means a sudden change in a fortune. The hero himself will make a mistake and suddenly he turns down. Most of his character which falls down. So this is the turn. The sudden turn of a fortune is called peripecia. That is called reversal. For example, a hero moves from happiness to misery. Suddenly his life will become so misery. That is a turn. This change should happen logically, not by chance. Plato said that we have to write how it should with a logic. Second one, in a complex plot, anagnorisis. Anagnorisis means recognition. Recognition of what? That is a realization of a truth. Realization of truth is called recognition. That is called anagnorisis. For example, the hero discovers something important about himself. Oedipus, as if we take the example of Oedipus, Oedipus realizes his true identity at the end of the story. Anagnorisis turns ignorance into what? Knowledge. Knowing it, being realized about the truth. So, anagnorisis turns ignorance into knowledge at the end. That is called anagnorisis. And the next, hamartia. Hamartia means error of judgment. It is not a crime or a sin. It is a human weakness. When a man does a mistake, a small error, that weakness itself is projected in the tragedy or in the plot, in the play. So example, which are the hamartia? The pride or ambition or overconfidence. These are called tragic flow. The tragic flaw is called hamartia. And next, a tragic hero. Who is a tragic hero? According to him, a tragic hero should be, in a tragedy, is a noble, is a good but imperfect, suffers because of a hamartia, This creates emotional connection. Pity and fear that he talks. Pity means sympathy for a suffering. Fear means realization that such a suffering can happen to us. Both emotions are necessary for tragedy, and even pity and fear that really plays very important role in tragedy. And the catharsis. Catharsis means emotional purification. When we watch a tragedy, we feel pity and fear. Both emotions are aroused in us. Emotions are released, mind becomes calm. This process is called catharsis. Tragedy does not disturb us, it balances our emotions. That he supports. What the point he supports? Tragedy does not disturb us, but it balances our emotions. Catharsis is the purification of emotions through tragedy. And contribution of Aristotle. Aristotle depended poetry, systematized criticism, explained tragedy scientifically, influenced all later critics. Students, Aristotle did not give rules to restrict literature. He gave ideas to understand why literature affects us. He showed us that emotions are not enemies, tragedy is not depressing, art is a teacher of life. Even today, when we cry during a movie and feel peaceful later, we are experiencing Aristotle's catharsis without knowing it. This is the greatness of Aristotle. He explained literature not as a misery or not it is as a mystery, but as a human experience. That is why even after centuries, Aristotle remains the backbone of a literary criticism. So friends, so this is all about Aristotle as a literary critic. So if you like my video, like it, share it and subscribe it. Thank you, and again I will meet with a new video with a new concept. Thank you. Let's meet again.